Hello there. So this is my opportunity to speak to you about working with the gene keys and creating spontaneous transformation. So this happened when I was together working with a client, and it became very clear that there's a particular characteristic we both share, and that is the characteristic of seriousness. So what we found ourselves doing was to immerse ourselves completely in what the gene keys calls the shadow of seriousness. So getting into a state of seriousness is a springboard to transformation, and the way to make it so is to embrace it completely, and this is what we did. So working shamanically, working with astrology, working with a variety of tools that I make use of on retreat, we embraced the seriousness of what it was that we were uncovering and discovering, and we took it as far as it would go, and it became a very extreme experience. And this was amplified by being within four walls in a rectilinear structure. In other words, a rectangle or a square room, which is how most of us live. And that shape, that space, definitely amplifies the qualities of seriousness, until we reached the point that we were ready. And then we went outside, we went into wild nature, and it was a drive in a little metal box called a car to get there. And the experience of wild nature began by being very confined in a valley with very steep cliffs, and we travelled to the exact place I was instructed to stop, which is near the top of the valley. And we walked up a very stony, rocky track into a grove of hazel trees. Now, hazel trees from the Celtic tree oracle relate to creativity and magical wisdom, so we were suddenly surrounded by the energy of creativity and magical wisdom. And we stopped, and we became very present to everything around us. We slowed right down, and we found ourselves quite naturally going on a little planned walk separately in silence. And then when the impulse to come back together arose, we simply found ourselves putting our things together and walking a little further up this very stony, steep track, until I felt the impulse to get off the track and to walk into the hazel woods to a particular location that was not decided by my rational mind at all. It was simply being led to the appropriate place. And then we did something which I've been doing for 83 days now, which is laughter medicine. And I'll shortly be making a film about laughter medicine, so you know what's involved. So this is what we did. We found ourselves moving and making sounds, which led eventually to laughter. And all the way through this experience, we were very strongly influenced by our surroundings, by the beautiful blue sky, the clouds, the sun shining through, the mild early spring temperatures, and the sense of the plants all looking on the surface like nothing much is going on, and yet as soon as we look underneath the surface we can feel the burgeoning energy, the aliveness of all these plants in the process of their very first buds opening, creating the leaves and the flowers. So it was a very significant time to be doing this. And so we were simply swept away by the beauty of wild nature, and we slipped into releasing the gift of delight. And the gift of delight manifested as we began making our sounds, which led to the laughter. And after the laughter, we came back together and sat down again. And the person I'm with, he began to come up with spontaneous poetry. And he declaimed his poetry like a rap, and it was beautiful. And we were in a state of such profound delight. So this is releasing the gift. So the shadow that we had been embracing earlier of seriousness has now been transformed into the releasing of the gift of delight. And indeed we remained in the gift of delight until it was time for me to take him to the station, and he went on his way, and I went back home, and this feeling of delight and enjoyment of everything intensified. And now that I suddenly had no responsibility or anything to do at all, and all I needed to do was simply be here for myself in this process, I found myself in the evening sitting down on my bench in the garden and tuning in to the majesty of the cosmos, the beauty of the sky, in the dark seeing the outlines of the branches of the apple trees, one to either side of my garden, and I found myself embodying the siddhi of ecstasy. The word ecstasy is very interesting because the word of ecstasy actually means to stand outside yourself, and that's what happened to me. I became aware. We'd been conversing at length about the power of taking on the quality of the observer. When a person becomes lost in their rational mind, the easiest way out is to become aware of this quality in yourself, which is the observer, observing, for example, the machinations of the rational mind in that case. So what I'm doing is I'm standing outside myself and I'm observing the delight that is my experience of being in this beautiful, beautiful world of ours, drunk on the beauty, delighted by the beauty of the little soft puffs of wind blowing in the evening darkness, and the state of ecstasy I fully embody. And the siddhi of ecstasy is ultimately beyond words, and it begins with me standing outside of myself, feeling the radiance of my being, feeling the radiance of all around me, sitting on my bench in the dark evening. And so that is an example of how to become consciously aware of making the transition by embracing the shadow of seriousness, releasing the gift of delight, embodying the siddhi of ecstasy. it's a state of utter oneness, utter appreciation, utter gratitude, and a sense of connection with all that is. So I thank you very much for coming with me on this journey this morning. And I noticed that the candle flame became smaller and smaller and smaller, and still there is a tiny flame on that candle. Thank you very much. All the love to you.